Hello, Moira. Good to see you.
Hello, sweetheart. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
You, sweetheart.
Hi, good to see you.
Oh, happy to see you. Are you enjoying the weekend? Yes.
I am. I understand you have a long weekend in Ireland. It's a bank holiday weekend, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And I have my treats and tricks.
I know, you're very lucky. Enjoy.
I will. Yes. Thank you.
Hello, Martin. How are you? You're on mute.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Martin. Good to see you.
Martin.
Sue, we also have past District Director Linda Malloy in the audience, and Jenny, past District Director Linda Malloy, is in thank you, is in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start then.
Yes.
Okay, welcome everyone to the next session in the District 71 Leadership Series, Sunday Leadership Series, should I say. My name is Nick Collins and I'm one of your Zoom masters today. Before we start, I'd just like to run through some basic Zoom etiquette, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Can you ensure that you've muted your microphones if you're not speaking? As you'll be aware, we are recording today, but we welcome you to keep your videos on. Our chat function will remain on for messages relevant to the webinar. And our chat monitor today is Sue Burnett. So if you have any questions for the Q&A session, please message her directly using the chat function. If you have any technical issues, please message myself through the chat function. So I'd like to hand over to our host for this evening, Sue Burnett.
Thank you, Nick. Fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests, it's my absolute pleasure to be your host this evening and chat monitor. And I am here to welcome you all, and especially our esteemed guests. We have in the room so far Pat Johnson, and I know she's got an amazing presentation lined up for us this evening. And we also have in the room, I'd like to acknowledge past District Director Helena Bowden-Brewer, past District Director Gerard Mannix. I'd also like to welcome past District Director Linda Malloy. And we have the D91 Public Relationship Manager in the room as well. So welcome, Nikita, and welcome all.
So, sorry to interrupt. We have to acknowledge the presence of past District Director Rupa Datta. Is also
oh, sorry, yes.
That's okay.
And we also acknowledge that past District Director Rupa Datta is in the room too. So welcome, Rupa. It's good to see you all here this evening. So I'm now going to pass you to Elizabeth. Are you doing the introduction for Pat?
I am going to.
So,
yes, I will.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So thanks for confirming that for me. So any questions that you have regarding leadership, in particular that you'd like to ask Pat, if you can make sure you pop that message into my into the chat directly to me, so I can monitor that and we can ask that at the appropriate time.
Okay, so before I do the introduction, Pat's introduction, I think our poet in residence has arrived. Can we?
Oh, wonderful! Yes,
can someone confirm that, please? Nick, can you?
So
confirm?
I hadn't seen.
Can you see Mike Keenan?
I hadn't seen Mike arrive. So if Mike is here,
okay, let me. He's trying to talk to me. Give me 1 second.
Oh, hopefully when he arrives, we will be in for a treat. So just bear with us, dear Toastmasters, and we will be able to move on to that part of the agenda.
Okay, I have sent him the relevant link, so whilst he's trying to get on, just to inform you, everyone, our esteemed past international president, Pat Johnson, arrived nice and early. She's all the way in Canada. But unfortunately, there was this fire alarm in her building, so they've had to evacuate. So she may be 5 minutes, she may be 10 minutes. But whilst we're waiting for her to arrive, I will do the introduction. And there's quite a lot to say about past international president Pat Johnson. She's been a Toastmaster for nearly 40 years. And I think it's really important, particularly this year, because this is the 50th anniversary of women being allowed as full members of Toastmasters. And she's in fact the 5th female international president. So she brings with her a very strong legacy. And we're all really proud that she sort of led the way for a lot of us. She is an executive coach, and she's also a writer. Many of you may know this book, her book, the one she's written. Can you see it? The one that's on a handbook for building sustainable, vibrant Toastmasters programs and corporations. If you've got any interest at all in starting a corporate club, this is an absolute must read. And certainly all our division directors get a copy every year. And it's never far from my desk. Really excellent reference book. I actually was in Pat's presence earlier today because she was on the panel in District 124, which is part of India, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. And she was on the panel of experts talking about emotional intelligence. And I have to say, no matter where she goes in the world, everywhere she goes, she's held in really high regard. Not only does she have a story to tell, but she has done a tremendous amount for clubs, areas, divisions, and of course the districts and the whole of Toastmasters International. Tonight, she's going to be talking to us about a topic that I believe we can all benefit from. It's going to be lifelong learning and leadership. So when she does return, that's going to be her topic. Lifelong learning and leadership. As I said, she is one of the most highly regarded of the leaders of Toastmasters, and she has the status that we grant to specific people. She's a friend of District 71. She's been here a few times, and she really does look out for our district, and she's very, very helpful to a lot of people in the district. So that's my introduction to her. I was hoping by speaking very slowly, she will have arrived by now, but she hasn't arrived yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to have our MC introduce the poet in residence, and then I will think what to do next and say a silent prayer that she arrives before then. So Madam MC, would you like to invite our poet in residence to read the birthday poem he wrote for the 22nd of October? Over to you, Madam.
Indeed, I will. Thank you very much, Madam District Director. So tonight we have our poet in residence, Mike Keenan, who will be presenting his 99th birthday poem for Toastmasters, and he will recite that this evening. So I am really delighted he is with us this year. It's our 3rd year of having a poet in residence, so it's a very special role for us as a district. So with that said, I would like you to put your hands together, or jazz hands, to welcome Mike Keenan, our poet in residence, into the room to share his poem with us this evening. So welcome, Mike. Over to you. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm sure any poem from me will only scratch the surface of the richness and magic of what Toastmasters has brought to many people everywhere. But I'll give it a shot anyway. I call the poem History and Her Story. We're both heavily involved. Toastmasters take a bow. Many words between then and now. to announce, profess, to say, to tell, no less water in the well. Every language has its thrill. It's in each word to self-fulfill. In each its own full meaning bring. To be silent, to write, to talk, to sing. When words and Toastmasters met, the long haul destiny indelibly set. Each one enriching the other, each the keeper of his brother. We're custodians of a treasure, adept with skills to make and measure. The kindest word that can be made is the unkind word unsaid. We look forward to such mastering again, witnessed in the past by women and men. A bird flies through history, carrying the Toastmasters story. So here's to those who went before us, those who held the door open for us. The torch is passed from hand to hand. All of 99 years spun and spanned. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mike. That was delightful. I almost had goosebumps there.
I think
Thank
since we have a bit of time, Madam MC, and we've got our poet in residence with us, I have to say I've read that poem several times since you wrote it. But one of the things that struck me, particularly since I'm the DD this year, is that phrase, "You're custodians of a treasure." I think that is such a beautiful turn of phrase, and it means so much. Do you want to share with us, Mike, what when you were thinking of this birthday poem, what inspired you? How did you, with a blank piece of paper and a pen in your hand, how did those words fall on the sheet of paper or on the laptop?
Well, I think the first thing really is that I write the poems first, and then I sort of put them on the laptop. I don't think any poem comes in a vacuum or comes in instantly. You have to sit in silence, just think, not really thinking, but just being an open book, or just trying to receive something of the great mystery of 99 years of Toastmasters expression and creating. And what does that actually mean for me, who just one member of an organization of thousands and thousands, and just to let it sit, and without getting, and even after that, maybe after about half an hour or 40 minutes, still waiting for words to come that might just describe it because you only have a short space and a small page to capture something that is so immense. And it just got present. There's some phrases in it that really jumped out and just came to me in the silence. And that was one of them, the custodians of a treasure. I think it almost comes from the wiser avalanche of Toastmastering worldwide. I don't know, it just seems to, a lot of the stuff I write in poems, I often get a sense that I'm just holding the pen in ways. Just to those, and I know that last term that came to me, that just came out of the blue. I was just sitting and just waiting for something. It was like waiting for a bus. All of 99 years spun and spanned. In my waking hours, I would never think of an expression like that you know, that the spun was that we were over 99 years, what has been woven together, and spend. I had this image of spinning yarn like they used to do in Ireland, and maybe that's a term too, spinning yarns. The Irish are good at spinning yarns in terms of the stories and the poems and the songs and all that wordsmithing, like that is such a strong part of Irish tradition. And the spun and spans, the span is the 99 years. We've been spinning for 99 years, and it's such an amazing thing to be part of that creativity, and now we are custodians for the next generation, that we have to pass it on to, and that we are trustworthy doorkeepers and custodians for this amazing gift that we've been given, and maybe to express the gratitude to the people who first introduced us to it. That I like this phrase that held the door open for us. These people, they just held the door, and we walked through, and we were. I know I'm grateful for the last 15 years to have had that door opened for me, and now to open it for others.
Thank you, Mike. That was amazing. And
thank you. I think we need a massive round of applause for that beautiful poem. I will send a copy of it to past International President Pat, so she can see your beautiful words and hear what you've written. I think, Madam MC, if you'd like to invite our guest speaker, I think we're all ready to hear her speak to us.
Thank you, Elizabeth, District Director. It gives me absolute pleasure to introduce our guest speaker this evening, past International President Pat Johnson, with her words on leadership from her massive journey in Toastmasters. So please give Pat Johnson a very warm welcome. Over to you, past International President Pat Johnson. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much, and my apologies for the interruption, but fire alarms come in buildings without warning, and we were evacuated, and fortunately the fire department is only a few blocks away, and they arrived and did their work efficiently and let us back in. So sorry, it's interesting the things that happen to us. It's just like leadership, right? You can't plan for it. You just have to be well informed, be prepared as best you can, and then respond to it. Thank you so much to District 71 for again inviting me to share some of my experiences. And today I wanted to share with you some of the things that I learned along the way that both served me in my personal life, of course, because it goes with us wherever we are, but also served me well in my leadership journey, both in Toastmasters, but also in the corporate world, because I think that they're linked, and they really we can pull them apart to some degree. But I find that as I was working on this presentation and thinking about it, I was thinking, well, Toastmasters gave me the environment that caused me to go looking for some more training. And then when I got that training, whether it was at university or personal development or a college course I took or some practical training at work, then I came back to Toastmasters and I practiced it here. So I found that it all got intermeshed with one another, and it wasn't clearly defined where I actually learned it, where I discovered I needed to learn it, or where I actually got to practice it. So I'm going to share with you some of the key things that I think I learned in my journey, and recognizing I'll identify some of them with stories from Toastmasters, and some of them will be things that people said to me that triggered me to go look somewhere. So I hope it's of value to you, and I'm going to speak for about 30 minutes, I think now, and then leave some time for questions at the end. So I want to start by what I was like when I arrived at Toastmasters, because I think it's really important to look at where we start. Every person that I know arrives in Toastmasters. They have different home life experiences. They might even be different because of their birth order, depending on their family, if they were raised as adoptees or foster children, or whatever your background was and how you were nurtured, how you were educated, what kind of education you actually had formally. What did you learn in your home life? What were the values of your home life? All of those things make us very different when we arrive and walk in that door of Toastmasters. Well, I had a grade 12 education when I arrived in Toastmasters. I lived in a very small community of about 3,000 people. I lived in a very small, isolated town, and I didn't really have access to education unless I went away. But I was very quiet, very shy, very introverted. And I felt that I made a whole bunch of assumptions because I was never offered education. I always thought that I was stupid. So here I was in my early 30s, believing I was stupid, that I couldn't afford to get education because I had really no money to go to school, and that I was stuck. And yet I felt this frustration in my brain that I had all these ideas, but I had no skills of what to do with them or where to go. And so I had a great aunt in my life, and my great aunt was the one spark in my life, because my life was not what I would call supportive or positive in the environment I was in. So I had this great aunt, and she encouraged me to take this university course. I didn't think I would get in, but I applied and I got in. And it was studying politics at different levels of our government in Canada. When I went off to take that program, to make a long story very short, I was asked to introduce a senator, which you will understand is one of our senior governing people in our judicial system, or in our parliamentary procedure, which is built on the British system. And I was just atrocious. I was a mess. I didn't know how to introduce them. I was so insecure. I was 2 days of just wringing my hands thinking that I had to introduce this senator. I didn't know whether to read the introduction, to stand up, to sit down, how to address them. And at the end of that terrible, terrible introduction, somebody walked up to me and said, "You should join Toastmasters." I had never heard of Toastmasters. I thought, I will never shadow the door in any education place. I'm too embarrassed. And I just wanted to hide. It took me about 9 months, and I realized somewhere in my brain that if I didn't do something, I was going to stay the same. And so I went to the door of my very first Toastmaster meeting. That was 4 decades ago, and I've not quit darkening the doors of Toastmasters since. So I've made a commitment to keep on the journey of learning from that very first day. But for me, one of the great learnings is to not forget where I came from and who was there when I walked through the door and what supported me, and how can I be that person for someone else who might be walking through the door, whether it's in a social event, whether it's a marketing or a networking event, whether it's a Toastmaster meeting. But I felt that it was so important that when I opened that terrifying door to walk into my first Toastmasters meeting, Joseph was standing there and he said, "Good evening, welcome to Toastmasters. My name is Joseph." And that hooked me because he had a great big grin on his face. He had a friendly voice, although he was formidable looking, and he welcomed me. Joseph also engaged with me once I went the first time, and he started challenging me. He found out I had a competitive edge, surprise to those of you that don't know me. And he also challenged me to reach my first education goal before he did. Well, I thought this was not a very big challenge because you've been in Toastmasters for 4 years and you still don't have your first education award. I can surely beat you to it. And so that engaged me. He found a way to motivate and inspire me. And so I raced with Joseph and I beat him by one speech to the completion of our first education achievement. So being that personable person, reaching out to those people that are sitting back, that are afraid, reluctant to step forward, although I still feel fear and shyness, I do want to be that person. I like to make an effort and challenge myself to go and sit at the table where I know nobody and introduce myself and meet those people that are perhaps afraid to mix, because I know what it feels like. I also recognize how important it is to let people know that they're welcome and wanted. Joseph, that very first night, said to me, here's an application form. We'd love you to join our club. I'll tell you, if he wouldn't have invited me that first night, I would not have gone back. People say, oh, let them start. Let them come 3 or 4 times. No, not me. I invite all our guests before they leave that very first meeting to join our club if they're interested. We would love you to consider membership in our club, because they may not come back. I didn't know if I was smart enough. I didn't know if they liked me enough. I was full of insecurities. I didn't know if I could afford it. But just the very fact that he said, we would like you to consider this, it opened it up so that I could ask him about how much does it cost? What do I need to know? Am I qualified to join the group? And we have to remember that when guests come to Toastmasters, or when they come to a new workplace, they don't know the answers. And we need to find a way to provide them with the answers so they don't opt out automatically, thinking that they're not wanted, they don't fit, they're not qualified. So remember where we came from, and remember those lessons that we learned of how people treated us, so we can treat them similarly. Or if they didn't treat you that way, how would you want to have been treated? The very first person that came along in Toastmasters after Joseph was a past international president. Now, I didn't know he was a past international president, but his name was Eric Stumuller, and you'll have to have been around Toastmasters for a long time to recognize that name. But Eric lived in Manitoba, which was my home province at that time in Canada, and he traveled around the country visiting for his job in hydro. So he visited my small Toastmasters club in Swan River. And Eric decided that I was a shining star. Clue here. Watch for shining stars and encourage them. I was in a little club, 8 or 9. When we were big, we had 10. That meant that harvest and planting wasn't going on in our farming community. And so Eric singled me out and he said, have you read the district handbook? I said, never heard of it. He said, here's a copy. He handed me a physical copy. He said, I want the pages worn out next time I come back. He said, you've got to know the rules, the regulations, the bylaws, if you're going to be involved in an organization. Then you can always play within the guidelines. Don't break the rules, but be innovative and creative. And so he gave me great license, but he also told me, here's the parameters, and be a good steward, be a good player, be a good member, keep your Toastmaster promise. And so I was always grateful for Eric for challenging me to be creative, innovative, but also to handing me those rules and regulations, those policies, those bylaws, those district administrative guidelines that helped me know and understand this organization so I could play fully in it. So look for people that are knowledgeable around you and be willing to learn from them. A couple of things around goals. I was always, after I got involved in Toastmasters and Joseph challenged me and we challenged one another to that first education achievement, I became a real goal setter because I saw that this was something I could really focus on and I could achieve something. And that was a new experience for me, that power of feeling that I could get something done. It was expanding my mind, it was expanding my confidence, my self-esteem, and it was a continuous journey. So set your goal, be clear on what your why is. And you've heard this many times, but we need to check in and say, Why am I doing Toastmasters? Like, Danny, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Because we get our motivation from there. And it's for us as leaders to sit with, to think, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to fill my time? Am I doing this to learn for myself? Am I doing this to support other people, to pass the learning along? And it can be many reasons why. But we can stay engaged and passionate if we stay in touch with our why. It changes over time. My why when I came to Toastmasters was to be able to walk into a room where there were people. That was my goal. That was why I was in Toastmasters for the first 6 years. Just walking into a room where there were people, where I wouldn't stop breathing, that I would actually be able to say hello to someone. And so for me, it's continually asking myself, why? Why am I here? And what are my goals this year, this next 6 months? And I'm so grateful that we have a real clear club success plan, because I can look around in the club success plan, I look around my club members, and I can find a goal for me to work on within the program that keeps me busy and moving forward and supporting the people around me. Because what I learned in Toastmasters, and which took me through my career and my personal life, is that we're role models for other people. Oh, people are looking for models all the time. Now, I think it's great if we can look at ourselves and say, well, I'm my own role model, but we often look outside and people are watching us to see how we behave, how we act, and if we're achieving. And particularly in our Toastmasters clubs, our new members are looking for us to lead the way, to show them how we've done it, where we've come from. Just yesterday, I was out with some of my teammates, some new members in my home club, and we walked out through a corn maze and spent the afternoon having coffee and outdoors doing fun things. And after we were sitting for coffee, and we were talking about various things happening, and I said, yes, I had listened to this presenter while I was away in Barcelona, and I said he was a brilliant musician, and he told stories in between the pieces that he played. But I said, his stories didn't connect with the audience. And they said, oh, what do you mean? And I said, well, he started the story about what happened to him, but he failed to say how it applied to us, to bring us into his story. And I said, I wanted to go and share with him the feedback, but I've also learned that people outside of Toastmasters aren't always ready for that feedback. Until you build some kind of relationship with this person, you can't walk up to them cold and say, hey, I've got some feedback for you that'll make you better than you are. And so I've learned through Toastmasters that while we might have feedback and we might definitely have some added benefit to bring to that person, that we have to have relationships with them, that they're prepared to hear that. But it was interesting, the reaction to me from our newer members when they're going, oh, tell us more about that storytelling. And we were just having casual conversation and talking about experiences. So people are listening and eager to learn. And we also forget how much we know. We take for granted what we already know. We're busy learning what the next thing is, but to appreciate what we already know. Back to goals for a moment. If you set a goal and you really commit to that goal, and I love to write my goals down, I build my goals backwards. So I build my goal with the date that I'm going to arrive at that achievement. And I write the goal in an emotional experience. Today, I've celebrated my distinguished Toastmaster. I opened the box and there was my award from Toastmasters International. I went out, I was excited. I shared it with my family. I let my friends know I got it. And I felt such a sense. So I write my goal like that. And then I work it back in months or years. And I track how I'm actually going to get to that final day. And I find that so much more powerful than starting from today and building those steps, because then I have the pull of what it's going to feel like that day when it's achieved. So I've learned to write my goals backwards. Didn't learn that in Toastmasters, but I've brought that to Toastmasters. I've also learned not to give up on the goals. Sometimes there's detours. Renegotiate them, reset them, and keep going. Check in to see if they're still relevant, but keep going. And this suited me so well in my professional career. How many times something would get stuck? It was going through approval, it'd go off the timeline. Somebody would say, oh, you have to take it back and review it. And so we would, and you always had to renegotiate the timelines, but it didn't end the project. So get committed to making it work through. The other part of that is accountability. And to build accountability into your processes. This is something that I use everywhere in my life. If I'm committed to going to the gym, I'm not naturally a person that loves to go to the gym. I love it when I'm there. But to get there, I have to leave something else. And so I have an accountability partner. I have an accountability partner in my Toastmasters club. I have an accountability partner in my personal life. I have an accountability partner to walk so many steps every week. I have an accountability partner for going to the gym. And guess what? As a result, I get called to be people's accountability partner. Somebody will phone me and say, hey, I want to get my garage cleaned out and I need some accountability. I go, I'm your gal. What's your timeline? What's your reward when you're finished? Let's get busy. And we build a timeline and they notify me and I hold them accountable. It's very valuable, both in our personal, our professional, and our Toastmasters lives. So build your accountability factor in your life. And I've certainly practiced that in Toastmasters in my career and in my personal life, and I love it. I find that I get things done because people hold me accountable and vice versa. I think the accountability also helps us avoid distractions. This happens in leadership a lot. There are always a lot of red flags. There are a lot of very attractive things we could get doing that would be fun to do, especially if it's looking at, oh, I have to finish the district success plan, or I have to do the budget. Oh, it would be so much more fun to do a leadership series. Oh, I'll go do that first. No, I've learned the discipline of doing the important things first. And I do those things for me because I'm high energy in the morning and my focus is there. I always make the tough decisions and do the hard projects first thing in the morning. And then I reward myself with doing a fun project. So I'm always seducing myself to get the hard stuff done because then I can go and do something that's fun. So find what works for you and use it because it supports us in what we're doing. To change the focus for just a moment, back to my great aunt Pearl, who was the spark in my life that was my hero in many ways. She was a woman that lived beyond before her time and did things very bravely. And so once I got to know her, and I really wanted to be like her. But she said to me that you'll be known by the company you keep, Pat. So watch who you keep company with. And that always served me very well. I always stayed committed to my goals because I hung around with goal-oriented people once I got in Toastmasters. Being in Toastmasters got me around people that were interested in continually improving themselves, supporting one another, creating a safe emotional space for people to learn, to risk, to be vulnerable. And as a result, I was able to grow in those ways because those are the people that I hung around with. I also got to, as a result of that, hang around with people that were doing leadership roles that I had never aspired, never even thought I was capable of. And I found as I hung with them, I went, I think I could do that. And so I would hold up my hand. Next thing I knew, I was an area governor, then I was a division governor, because I hung around with people that were doing it. And I thought, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. So we want to be really careful about the people that we hang out with, and to hang out with some people also in our lives that hold us to greater standards than we already think we can do. And let me give you an example. When I was finishing up as district governor in those days, somebody said to me, "You should run for international director." Well, who is that? Like, somebody just says that? That doesn't cost them any money. That doesn't cost them any time. Doesn't cost them any effort, any commitment, any dedication. It's just simple words. They walk away. They might even forget they said it to you. But what I learned was to hang with those people that have been successful. And when they say something to me that you should try this or you'd be good at this, if they've been successful at it, then I know it's valid. So it's looking at who's saying these things to you. Are they saying it? For me, it was learning discernment. Were they just saying it glibly to make you feel good, or just as an off comment with no investment? Gary Schmidt, past international president, him and I had been club growth directors, program quality directors, and district directors together. So we knew one another fairly well. And he said to me, "You should run for international director. You'd be great." Well, Gary had just been elected international director, so I knew he knew what it was about. So I had a conversation with him. I also talked to my mentor at that time. And based on those two people's input and my own fear, total fear and vulnerability, said, "I'll do it." I raised my hand and I kept going. It's important when people around us hold us to higher a level than we think we can achieve, because it causes us to rethink, to press ourselves, to step out and be uncomfortable, which brings us to that uncomfortable place that I love to be in. How many of you love to be uncomfortable? Not all of us do, but it's a good thing to get used to. We're uncomfortable just by the word, but it's a great place to be, because that's where we learn. It's getting out on the edge, trying something that we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but having enough confidence that you know that you're going to survive and that you'll be okay. There'll be people, there'll be other experiences if it doesn't work out. And I'll just leave one last story quickly, because I do want to allow some time for questions around the being uncomfortable. When I had finished my division director role in District 64 and I moved to District 21, I decided, well, I'm ready for district leadership. And I ran for club growth director, what was now called club growth director. And I had walked into the meeting and I was fairly new to the district, didn't know a lot of people, but I walked in and they were taking nominations from the floor. So I raised my hand. And the only person surprised in the room that I wasn't elected was me, and I wasn't elected that time. The next year, the person that had been elected club growth director that year did not go on, so program quality was open. And I thought, well, I'm the natural person to fit in. And so I ran again from the floor as a candidate and was not elected. So 2 years in a row, the district did not elect me. I thought, well, I'm a bit of a slow learner, but I'm going to go away and think about this. And what I discovered, and I did spend about 3 or 4 years before I went back to run for office again, is what I discovered is that if I don't believe in myself, nobody else will believe in me. If I don't see myself as a leader first, nobody else will see me as a leader. And so when I got to the point where I did a number of years of service in our district, I was a conference chair, I spoke at a lot of our conference events, I set up chairs, I introduced speakers, I did everything that I could find to do in the district to get known, but also to learn. And when I got enough confidence and believed in myself enough, I went and got a campaign manager. I went through the nominating process of the district. I got nominated for club growth director and I got elected. And I have been in a number of elections since successfully because I believe that I know how to do my homework now, and I believe in myself before I enter it. Now, I don't think that always brings us success in elections, but I also know that I can't get there until I believe in myself. So be prepared, do our homework, and just as any job that we go to apply for, we have to believe that we're capable of doing it. We have to believe in ourselves first, or that comes across that we're not fully there and prepared. So obviously, well, not obviously, but from my perspective, I could talk about a whole list of things, but I'd rather have your questions and answer your questions, because for me, the journey of life is one of learning, and everything I learn, I can practice in Toastmasters. Things I discover that I don't know in Toastmasters, I can go and get training and bring it back here to practice and then take into the real world. When I went to the Justice Institute to take my certification in conflict resolution, mediation, negotiation, I intended to use that in my workplace, but it came as a result of dealing with conflict in Toastmasters. And now I use it in every day in my life. It's the way I look at things. It's the way I question things. The same as when I did my coaching. I went to do that for my career, but I use it in Toastmasters. I use it in my personal life for who I am. Those skills get integrated. So I will say that they run interrelated to one another as we learn, where we practice, where we become aware of the need to learn something specific and a place to practice it and integrate it into our lives in all aspects. So over to you, whoever is going to monitor chat for me. Danny, are you doing that, or is Sue, or?
Yes, it
Sue,
is.
are you doing that? Oh,
yes,
great.
I am. And
Good.
I think you've answered some of the questions already. So let's go for ones that haven't been answered. And then we can always come back to those if we want to delve into that a bit deeper. So one of the questions I've been asked by our district director, Elizabeth Jordan, is you've been in Toastmasters for 40 years and have seen many changes. What do you think the next 40 years have in store for Toastmasters?
Oh my goodness, I have such a broad vision because that's one of the things I love to do is vision. I see Toastmasters continuing because I think there's such a need for communication and expanding. I see us become a much greater presence in the corporate worlds, in our education systems, in our corporate training world, as well as our community, because the first 100 years has been very community-based through our clubs, but I see a much greater need in the corporate world, having run training and development there, to have a formalized program that's in the corporate world, but also to reach out while we've got youth leadership and speechcraft, that those would be much bigger. I don't see the need for Toastmasters ever going away. So that's a short answer. Elizabeth, if you've got a couple hours, we can talk about it further.
That's an excellent start. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. So moving on, I have a question here from Mila. And she said that you mentioned bringing goal setting and accountability to Toastmasters, which sounds like a fantastic idea. Where did you learn about it? And she's suggesting that it might be Bob Proctor, but I don't know for sure. So would you share that answer with us if you're willing to do so?
Yes. Yeah, for me, my personal experience, I think, was in goal setting in a formal way, actually was in Toastmasters. That's where I was exposed to the idea of actually having a plan and setting a plan. And then I got curious about it because I thought there was probably many ways of setting goals. And then I did lots of reading. There was a book I read many years ago by Lynn Grabhorn entitled "Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting." And she taught about how important it was to visualize your goals through your emotions. So visually, auditory. So what would you see? What would you smell? What would you taste? What would you feel? All of the senses anyway, with your goals, and to experience them that way. And then through her, I also got in touch with the idea of doing vision boards and putting your emotions around your goals. And then I found physical objects that became my goals, symbols of my goals. And I surrounded myself with those. I had vision boards on the walls in my in my closet at home, where I would go in and my goals would be hung there. And then I put them in my office. And then when I had a major goal of getting elected to the board of directors, I had it hung at the end of my bed. So when I woke up in the morning, first thing I saw was my goal, and the last thing I saw at night was my goal. So I did a lot of personal growth also, to overcome those feelings of I'm not good enough, I won't make it, and just getting really putting steps in. And then reading also that, what did I do today to take a small step towards my goal? So sometimes, you get home from work, you've got all the things, you've made meals, you've cleaned house, you've done laundry, all of that. And it's like at the end of the day and you go, I don't think I did a thing towards my goal. And so I would always have a book to read where I could think about a concept or focus on, I'd pick up it when it was my ID goal. I could pick up the Toastmasters magazine and read an article in it and say, oh, that would inform me of something different. And then I would talk to my mentor. So having those people and those resources around, but always taking steps forward, not getting stuck in today, and not letting my goal be overcome by all the busyness of life. So I think I really got to practice goal setting. But then as as life went on and got involved in coaching and working in the workforce, and running departments, everything was goal setting. And so I took project management, and then I would build project plans, which was, the next level of building goals, right, Elizabeth? And putting all those things into the project, then working with project managers that would ask all those hard questions and bringing my team into that. So everything starts simplistic, and then we build in complexities as it serves us. And then for me also, then in coaching, it was learning to build those goals backwards. So a lengthy response, but I hope it made sense.
Oh, absolutely. I love the visioning process, because having a very strong vision of where you're going helps you to get there. So if you want to get to Glasgow and you live in Peterborough, you need to plan a route. You need to know when you're going to get there. You need to know what the journey is going to be like. And then eventually you'll get there. But if you don't make a plan, woo.
Yeah. They used to say, if a fail to plan is a plan to fail.
Indeed. So. Great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, the next question comes from Maura. And Maura said, please, can you describe a time when you had significant impact on a person or a team?
Oh, my goodness. There are actually so many come to my mind, and that sounds boastful, but I think when, my whole life has been about teams. And I think in my workplace, I found that I was the champion for my team. And that was not always seen as a wonderful thing in my workplace, but my team was priority for me. I was the leader of them. We worked together. We had great synergy. I had fabulous people that I was able to hire. And I fought for us to get what we needed. I had to advocate all the time because I had people around us that didn't know what we needed as a team. And I feel that we were just super dynamic. People were jealous of our team. People would say, we wish we were on your team because we all got along, we built synergy. Doesn't mean we didn't have conflict or we didn't have differences, but we had a strong, solid relationship that we could talk about those. We would go into a room, I'd say, okay, safe place, say what we have to say. There's no wrong, there's no right. Let's just talk. And we would do that. And I've been out of that particular workforce now for 11 years. And next Saturday, we're getting together to have brunch. Like, we've stayed connected. We've just stayed connected because we built that relationship so strongly. I had a similar experience in Toastmasters when I was district director. My club growth director and my program quality director, we were very, very different. We didn't really know one another very well. We came from different parts of our province, but we were like chalk and cheese. We were so different. But at the end of the year, they called us the Three Musketeers. We went everywhere together. We stuck with one another. We defended one another. We didn't always agree in private, but when we were in public, we were united. And that was one of the things our district did not have previously, that they had infighting in the district. And at the very beginning of the year, I said, we'll solve our problems in private. We will vent in private. We will work it out. But when we go out into our team, our bigger team of the district, they have to see that we can work together, that we can work through our differences, and that we can lead united. And we did. And to this day, we're still connected as well. And I was district director in 2001 too. So that's a long time ago, but we're still connected. And they called us the dream team. So some of those things at the time that were just learning processes, but we did what we felt was right. And we also really were careful as leaders in the workplace and also in Toastmasters that we never did anything that we weren't willing to read on the front page of a newspaper. That was one of our guidelines, that we would never do something to one another that we weren't willing to read about on the front page of the newspaper. And so it meant that there was respect and dignity and honor amongst us, and honesty and trust. And we lived the core values, which we didn't have in those days in Toastmasters, but we really brought integrity, respect, service, and excellence to our relationship and to those that we worked with. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. That was amazing, those insights. Now, while we're on the subject of teams, because teams help us to get places and go places and create wonderful things that happen. And when we work together, we all achieve more. And while we're on this subject, there seems to be a bit of reluctance among members after the pandemic to step up to leadership roles, to join a leadership team. And as district leaders, we have gaps in our teams. So how would you inspire people to rise to those challenges?
I think there's a number of things to do. First of all, I was found in a small club in the rural area by a past international president that saw a spark that I didn't see and I didn't know I had. But he handed me a district handbook and said, read this. And he inspired me by picking me. And so I say, look around in your clubs. They don't have to be big clubs. They might be small clubs, but look around for those sparks. Because what I believe has happened over COVID is our younger members, our newer members, not necessarily young in age, but our newer members haven't seen any models. We've just seen people in squares on the screen, and we all are quite a lot alike when we're putting boxes on the screen. And so they don't get our energy, they don't get our excitement, they don't see us doing things, they don't see us reporting out necessarily because they might not come to that kind of a meeting online. And so I don't think they've seen live leaders that they can aspire to. So I encourage you to get out there, to be seen, to speak. I think all the area directors that are currently working in those roles or learning in those roles need to be out in their clubs looking for their replacement, building succession. That was our commitment when I was in leadership early on. We had to find our replacement. That meant I looked everywhere for rising stars. I wanted to mentor them if somebody was capable. I want to mentor them because I wanted to make sure I was being replaced. And because as a good team player, I wanted to have at least 1 or 2 spares if somebody else was unable to. That was my commitment to the team, was to have a spare 1 or 2 that we could share if we needed it. So I think getting out there, I think making contact, I think looking for those bright shining stars, I think calling people forward, giving them inspiration and mentoring them, being willing to mentor them. This past year, a young woman joined my home club, and she's very busy. She was going to school, she was working full time to support herself, and she joined and she lacked confidence and self-esteem. And I sat down at the back of our meeting room one morning when she was there, second time she visited, and I said, "What's holding you back from starting our group?" She said, "Well, I don't think I can do it." I said, "Let me tell you some of my story." And I told her how I had started out and how terrified I was, and I was afraid to be in a room with people, etc. I knew she was way beyond this level. And she looked at me and she said, "I can't believe that." And I said, "But it's true." And she joined Toastmasters. And this past year, she was Rookie of the Year in our club. She gave exceptional speeches. To get her to give her icebreaker was like pulling teeth to get her up there. And she got a standing ovation for her icebreaker. And every speech was breathtaking. But she just didn't believe in herself. And we as a club were given the gift of believing in her and encouraging her. And she will light stars wherever she goes in her life, just because who she is, as soon as she believes in herself. So I think we need to give those people encouragement that they can do it, that there's something for them, and to be there for them. Don't leave them on their own.
Thank you, Pat. And we thoroughly enjoyed listening to you this evening. And there are a ton more questions, but I know we have to be respectful of time. So I'd like to hand over to our Programme Quality Director, Danny Banks, to give the vote of thanks. And then if it's okay with you, we can perhaps ask those remaining questions and we can give that feedback if that's okay. So over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Madam MC Sue. Well, wasn't that worth waiting for, fellow Toastmasters and dignitaries? Before I thank Pat, there's 2 other people I'd like to thank for tonight. Firstly, the local fire brigade where she lives, for being so close to her flat so that they got there quickly and sorted everything out so she could join us. So thank them. I'd also like to thank Joseph for being the one who persuaded you to join Toastmasters, so you started that career and were able to come and talk to us tonight, because I've heard you speak so many times before, and every time I hear you speak, there's something more I can take from it and learn from it and be motivated by it. And really, you know, I think we've all got so much out of tonight. You've shared so many things. There's 3 things that I particularly like, that particularly resonated with me tonight. Don't forget where you come from. I think that's so important. We've got such a variety of people who join Toastmasters. They've got so many stories to bring and so many journeys to start. That is so important. Don't forget your why. Why are we doing this? And I think that's so important, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, that, you know, we have to constantly think, why are we doing this? And why is it important? And the last person you met, that you just talked about, how you persuading her to join Toastmasters has enabled her to find her why and travel on. And I'm sure we can all think about people in our clubs that are like that. And then the third thing was the idea of the shining stars. I think that's such a lovely picture. And when you went on to elaborate a little bit more in your last answer about how we might bring people on, because there are so many people. When you were talking, I was thinking about people in my club that I could say, yeah, you should be doing something at the district level because you are capable of it. You just need the confidence to it. So those are three things that I picked out, but I could have picked out so much tonight. Now, I know you've only just got back off holiday and you're probably still jet lagged, whatever, coming over from the Mediterranean. And I know you've not been very well. And then the fire brigade had to come round. But I personally would like to wish you a big thank you for all that you've said tonight. And to be honest with you, a few years ago, I heard you speak and it motivated me to carry on. So thank you for that, Pat. And thank you for tonight. And hopefully now you can go and have a rest. Hopefully. But you are a friend of D71. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Danny. I was thrilled to be asked and being able to be here for sure. And it's great to see many familiar faces. Good to see Gerard, Rupa, on and on, as I'm Helena flipping through. Good to see so many of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I mentioned in my introduction that, you know, your generosity. Earlier today, you were doing a presentation to India, District 124, and you came from there, you came to us. So we really, really appreciate your generosity. And as Sue said, PRM Sue said, and Danny said, you've left us all with food for thought, and each of us would take away something very special from your presentation. So I think you deserve a break. I think we should unmute ourselves. I think doing the jazz hands, so we should unmute ourselves and make some noise. This is District 71. So, yeah. Yes, well done. Okay.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's lovely to see you. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and thanks to our Zoom master Nick and Liz and the Sunday webinar team. You're absolutely fantastic team. Thank you for making all this possible. Nick, Sue, Jenny, Liz, Matty, James, the whole team. They're wonderful. We love being a team and making this happen. Okay, thanks everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Good night.